Bum ba bum bum ba bam ba bum bum. Ba 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 bum ba bum ba bam bam. Ba ba bum bum ba bum ba bam bam. Ba 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 bum bum ba bum. Ba 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 bum ba bum ba bum bum. Ba 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 bum bum. Ba ba bum bum ba ba bum bum bam. Ba ba bum. Bum ba ba. Uh-oh. Don't look at that. Ba 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 ba. We're not going to talk about it. Ba 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 ba. Beep ba 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 ba. All right. I think you get the idea. I think you understand what I don't know. I don't even understand what I'm trying to do. Guess where I am, people? I am in Acadia. 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 University. Also known as Acadia. Also known as Nova Scotia. Wow. 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 Okay, so good morning. Good morning, as they say in Japan. Good morning. So, here's the dealio, peoples. This is going to be a rambly as hell video. Can't expect much else from Theodore J. Kirkley. It's actually Theodore E. Kirkley, but sometimes I say J because I don't know why. It's going to start out really rambly. Really, really rambly, but I'll get, I think I'll get where I'm going. Maybe I won't. So this land is known as, apparently it was known at one point as Acadia, and now it's known as Nova Scotia. There are a lot of formerly French people here, a lot of British people that lived here for a time, and now there are a lot of Canadian people living here because it's Canada, or Canada, as the Canadians, canoe, as the Canadians say. So, what do I want to talk about in this video? I want to talk about morality, and I want to talk about and I want to talk about Fantastic Four, and I want to talk about, what else do I want to talk about? What I'm doing here. I want to talk about what I'm doing here. So, I've had a lot of experiences here. I've had a lot of experiences, and I find that interesting. What kind of experiences did you have here, Theo? Well, I had a martini by the beach. No. I don't have cool experiences the way other people have cool experiences. I have had conversations that have been enlightening and interesting and made me feel things. And those are really powerful experiences. So what am I doing here? Let's answer that question. I'm here to see Jesus and Mary. What are you talking about? From the Bible? From the Bible. The Bible? Yep, from the Bible. So you're calling him Jesus again, Theo, instead of AJ? I don't know. I thought about the name thing again. Like, I think I started out calling him Jesus because I'm like, seems to be Jesus to me. He's a good guy, and I still feel that way. But then I'm like, well, I don't know if he's Jesus or not. Because, for one thing, he says that I don't know. Like, he says like 5 or 6 people know. This was like a few years ago. Like, he can, I don't know. said something about the fingers on his hand is how many people know. And I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. And then I heard him say it again. Oh, that's really. And then I'll watch videos the second time, and I hear the same thing being said again, and that's really interesting. I think that's really interesting. How do I not know? Why won't I know? Isn't what I think enough? Maybe it's not. He says something about, like, if you're not willing to, at the cost of your life, like, keep your stance on an issue, then do you really believe or know that? And I think that's a valid point. I see issues with that point. I don't fully get it, but it's a valid point. Like, if someone put a gun to my head and said, "You believe he's Jesus now?" Then I would be like, maybe not. Maybe not now. Now that there's the prospect of a bullet going into my brain and ending my life. So, that's a valid point. So, but the thing is, like, he claims to be Jesus. If a man came to me and said they were a woman, and they are obviously a man, and they said, "Hi, my name is Becky," I'd be like, is it though? But I'd also call them by that name, the name that they are telling me to call them by. I wouldn't necessarily refer to them, to their sex, by their preferred pronoun. Like, if it was an actual man claiming to be a woman, I'd probably refer to them as a man in their pronoun. However, that's questionable too, because I had a job once where that was an issue, and I didn't want my workplace to be compromised. I didn't want my position to be compromised, and I didn't want to get, like, undercut by this fellow employee who was claiming to be trans, and so I didn't refer to him by his actual sex. So anyway, maybe a little hypocrisy there. So, but yeah, like, if a man said, "Oh, I'm Becky," then I call them Becky, and I realized that I call Cornelius, not that I've ever met him, but if anyone ever asks me about him, or if we end up talking about him, I refer to him by his name, Cornelius, in the first century, even though in this century his name is David. So why not, A.J. Miller claims to be Jesus, and he says, "Hi, I'm Jesus," so why not call him Jesus? So started out calling him Jesus, and I started calling him AJ. I might start calling him Jesus again. So I'm here to see Jesus and Mary and hear them talk, and it's been really interesting. The first 2 days of the seminar, I was attentive. And the third day, I sat in the back and had, like, irritable bowel syndrome, because I had a lot of dairy and sugar the night before, deep into the evening, and so I was afraid I was going to fart. I didn't fart, actually, so that was good. I was like, I'm going to have to, like, leave here several times, and I didn't have to do that, but I was really tired because I didn't get a lot of sleep, and so I was yawning and, like, slumping in my chair. So the third day was a bit of a wash, but I've had other experiences that were really interesting, conversations that were really fascinating, and moments that were really interesting and fascinating. And I don't want to go into those, actually, because it would take a long time to explain what I felt. And so I don't think I shall do that. But, like, at one point I saw a woman who comes from a very far off country get a hug from a man also originally from a far off country, but now lives here and is pretty firmly planted here in the US. And she had significant hardship coming here all the way from that far off country, and she was very lonely. She was, like, you could feel like she found it difficult to relate to people, and she came anyway, and she got this hug from this guy, and she started crying, and I started crying, and it was really beautiful to see, and stuff like that, you know. And then there have been conversations. I'll give you a snippet of another conversation. So I asked a question during the seminar, and someone said, like, basically you're attacking, like, Jesus and Mary with the question. And I didn't think I was, but I have to hold the possibility that that's possible. And in a way, like, I am attacking because, like, I'm in probably a hellish condition. Oh, squirrely. And so, like, even if I'm not attacking my question, I'm generally attacking them. But I probably am attacking to some degree my question. I mean, the fact that I live my life with so much doubt and I don't take the opportunities in front of me to love means that I'm probably attacking. You know, it's sin by omission. Not taking the opportunity to do something loving means you're losing the chance to do the right thing. And anyway, so that was difficult for me to hear, and I was like tracking my emotions at the time and kind of thinking, how do I get out of this? Wondering, am I sulking now? Am I sulking? Am I like withdrawing and going into my shell? A friend of mine said, you just feel how you're feeling. And I'm like, here? Like in the middle of the conversation? I really didn't feel, even though she was saying, just it's okay to feel. I really didn't feel that I could go into my feelings. If I went into any feelings at that moment, they would probably be angry feelings. And I did not feel comfortable going into those by any means. Anyway, and then later I asked someone else their opinion of my question, if they felt it was attacking, and they said no, it wasn't, in my opinion. And so there was a completely different opinion, and I'm like, oh, interesting. Not that I recommend you go around and find the right person to like tell you everything's okay, because that's what people do a lot, right? Like you gotta know, you got a difficult situation. Someone gives you someone tells you something that's difficult for you to hear, and then you're like, I didn't want to hear that. Here, I know what I'll do. I'll go and find somebody to tell me what I think is the case. So I stay in my bubble, in my shell. You know, I'll go find someone to agree with my viewpoints on the matter, so I don't have to think about it. So I don't have to change. Even if the initial people were wrong, you know, it's a good thing to reflect on. So anyway, that's another little snippet of something that happened that was meaningful and powerful to me. And yeah. And then yesterday, I saw the Fantastic Four First Steps movie. And I thought, yeah. I said to myself, ah. You know, I actually said that. I said, ah. In so many words. I said, oh. And I was like, oh, that's not so bad. It ain't half bad there. That's not that bad. And it wasn't that bad, but it wasn't that amazing either. And I'm like, when am I going to quit these gosh darn movies? When am I going to stop watching these movies? When am I going to stop cherry picking? You know, like I have a 3-ton mound of poop, and I'm looking for 3 cherries in the 3-ton mound, and it smells bad, and it's a difficult time, and it's muggy out, so I'm sweaty, and now I'm getting shit on my hands, and I'm cherry picking for these 3 cherries. Please give me some cherries, please, just a little bit. You know, if I could just have 3 gosh darn cherries out of this ton mound of poop. Like, that's what I feel like when I go and watch a movie. There might be a little bit of truth in it. There might be something that I can... Maybe there's one thing that I can hold on to. Please? Yeah. And... Oh, so here come the spoilers. I'm not going to be spoiler heavy, but like I'm going to talk about maybe 2 spoilers. The wonderful mother in the movie, Sue Storm, tells her brother, Johnny Storm, kill that person over there. And he's like, really? And she's like, yeah, she's threatening your nephew. Kill her. And he's like, okay, I guess so. And he's like semi-attracted to this person he's about to possibly murder. So he's like, he's got misgivings about it. But I'm like, oh, that's not good. I said to myself, oh, that's not good. Because it's interesting to see all of these many myriad excuses for murder in the world that we live in. There are so many excuses for it. They might kill your nephew, Johnny. That's why you have to kill them now. I'm your sister and the matriarch of this little team/family that we have here. If you don't do what I say, there will be hell to pay in your personal life. I might just have to excommunicate you from the family if you don't conduct the act of killing another human being. Of course, you'll excommunicate them from the world, but let's not talk about that. What you need to be concerned about is that you will have created a rift in our relationship, creating a rift in the family dynamic that you have, which will be emotionally difficult for you, and you'll be ostracized from us because I have power in this group dynamic. And if you don't do what I say, that's when it's going to happen. So, that was awful to witness, and I'm like, my heart hurts watching that. And by the way, I should say that it's not him creating a rift. It's her, by giving this order that if you don't follow, there's harsh penalties. Does that make sense? It won't make sense to everybody. That's the one thing I realized. People are not going to get what I'm saying in a lot of ways. So, some people get it now. Some people don't get it now. And maybe they'll get it later. I don't know. A lot of times I talk as if people will just get it. You get what I'm saying, right? This one's obvious, right? And I'm kind of starting to entertain the idea that a lot of people just don't get it, and I don't need to beat up on myself or expect them to get it, or go away and hurt myself for 3 days by just thinking and rethinking an incident, and thinking, could I have said it better, or I said the wrong thing, or blah blah blah. No, I said what I said because that's what I felt like saying, and maybe it was a mistake, but I don't need to overly censor or overly reframe what I'm saying. At some point, when I get new knowledge, when I deal with my emotions to the point that I can receive new information and change, I'm sure I'll do things better. But for right now, that's what I said. So, if that makes sense. But that was painful. That was painful to watch. Sue Storm saying, "Johnny, go kill that person!" And I quote. So, But and then here's another thing that happened, and it was illuminated by a video that I watched. But like there was, so basically the big bad of the movie, Galactus, who eats planets. He's a planet eater. He eats planets. He's like, hey, I'm gonna go eat your planet down there, okay? And the Fantastic Four are like, please don't. And he's like, well, you came here to beg for mercy? Yeah, dingbats? And they're like, no, we came here to negotiate. And he's like, yeah, all right. And he's like, well, you negotiate? Okay. Guess what? That little child there, tucked away in that woman's womb over there, yeah? Your son? I like him. I like him very much. And I will spare your planet. I won't eat your planet if you give me your child. And they're like, oh. Like for a quarter of a second, they're like, ooh, maybe we should give the child, because then we don't have to. That would make it really simple. But that was just for a quarter of a second, and then they're like, no, we're not going to do that because we're moral. Okay, we're moral people. And then Galactus is like, okay, well, I guess I'm just going to have to eat your gosh darn planet then. And they're like, no, we're going to fight you now. Basically. And so, yeah. And then they go back to Earth. So this will happen in space. They go back to Earth, and everybody knows about them. Everyone's like, oh, the Fantastic Four, they're going to save us. So, guys, what happened? So what happened, guys? You came back down to Earth. You're back here now. We're so happy you're back. That's good. What happened? Oh, yeah. Well, so we met Galactus. We met the guy. His fashion is like a little bit weird. And, yeah, it turns out he wants our baby. And he said, if we give him our baby, then he won't eat the planet. And everyone's like, what? So you gave him the baby, right? And they're like, oh, no, we didn't give him the baby. And people are like, wait, why don't you just give him the baby? Spare one life. You know, you sacrifice one life for everybody. That's okay. And they're like, Fantastic Four is like, no, that's not okay. Do you not see what's wrong with that? No. And then everyone's like, no, what do you mean? You just should have given them the friggin' baby. And so that happens. And here I am watching a movie in Canada, you know, in Nova Scotia, in New Minas town, at the Cineplex in old Canada. And here I am thinking to myself, well, that's a moral issue there, mister. But there's a moral issue. So, fighting happens afterward. But here, Theo Kirkley in New Minas, you know, in Acadia, in the land of Nova Scotia, in Canada, says to himself, well, maybe they didn't have to fight. I don't know. Maybe they didn't have to fight. Maybe they did. But they didn't, because you don't have to do anything, because it's always a choice. But here's the other point. Sue Storm goes out in front of everybody and says, listen, guys, I didn't do this earlier, but I want to introduce my baby to y'all. Okay? Here's a baby. Very cute. Look at the baby. I'm the mommy of the baby. You've had babies. You've known babies. You were a baby. Babies are cute. Let's all respect the beautiful innocence of the baby. The baby. And let's appreciate the fact that we're not going to give up the baby for the sake of saving the gosh darn planet. We're going to try to find another way. And everyone's like, in the movie, oh, that makes sense. Thank you. We learned our lesson, Mom. Thank you. That's literally like the response. And I saw this other video of this guy like, I don't think that would have worked. And I agree with him. Because people are immoral. Like in this world that we're in right now, I think people would be like, no, I just saw your baby. Fine. Very cute baby. Thanks for letting me look at the baby. Now give up the baby. To the big, angry demigod guy. Give up the baby so we can all live. Okay? So the moral question here is, do you do the wrong thing in order to quote unquote do the right thing? It's kind of like the trolley experiment. Do you move the lever to save 3 people, but in so doing kill another person? And that, to be very honest with you, in the way the trolley experiment is constructed, in that very simplistic way, I find that very difficult to answer. Do you commit an act, or do you, like, by moving the lever so that 1 person is killed instead of 3 people, or do you not move the lever and let what was going to happen, but you are, you had the choice and you didn't take it? And this goes even into questions about, like, can one person save the sins of many, as is considered in the whole, in Christian religion, where one person in the, as the Messiah sacrifices his life for the sins of the world. By the way, that's all bullshit. That's not something God wanted to happen. It's not something that does actually happen. I have this Christian friend who's like, she went to a Buddhist, a Hindu temple, and she's like, oh, I shouldn't be here. There's bad stuff here. There's Satan is here. And she starts singing to herself, like, very quietly so her friend doesn't hear. Washed in the blood of Jesus. Washed in the blood of Jesus. And I'm like, quietly, I don't say this to her, but I'm like, that is extremely disgusting. Like, that is so gross that you would, like, use the idea of washing yourself in someone's blood. By the way, blood isn't very, cleansing, just so you know. I'm sure you'd have to wash yourself with water if you had blood on you. That was gross to hear, but that's something she believes because she's a Christian, like a traditional Christian. Not an actual Christian, but a traditional one, like a modern Christian. But like that, those are some of the issues that, that's an issue that's highlighted with this whole idea. Do we do a bad thing in order to try and do a right thing? And you can't actually do a bad thing as a means to an end, ever. You can't negotiate with terrorists, I don't like that whole phrase, but you can't negotiate with the terrorists, You can't give a terrorist a single thing that they're asking for. You can't give a person who's trying to do a bad thing any kind of fuel to do that bad thing, ever. You just can't. And that's not a moral principle that I like espouse or that I like actually will follow in every part of my life, because I feed people's addictions, because I do bad things all the time. I work a job for money. I don't work a job because it's my passion. I work a job for the security of a paycheck, because I want to know that I'm going to get money in return for the work that I'm doing, and I can have some kind of living. There's a lot of things that I do in my life that aren't loving, and I am currently doing them because my soul condition is really low, because I don't want to change quickly. I'm not like that. I'm not zestful for growing in love. So, but I feel that I can still say, from God's perspective, it makes sense to me that it's wrong to, give any, like, someone that's doing bad, you don't give them any fuel to continue doing bad things. You don't say, okay, well, I'll do a few bad things for you. As long as you do, let's compromise here. As long as you don't do these bad things, I'll let you do a few bad things. No, you don't do that. So, and by the way, that doesn't mean that you go and fight the terrorist. Even the fact that you call them a terrorist with so much anger in your heart doesn't mean like you're doing something bad by doing that, or any desire that you have to try to gain victory over them by causing violence to them is really evil. So that needs to be said. So I hope you're following, where I'm going with this. But basically what I'm saying is, like, the Fantastic Four were right. You don't give up your baby to this planet-eating guy to save the planet. You don't, because it's morally wrong. But the people didn't understand that. And the point that I want to make here is that you could tell them that. You could say, guys, it's wrong to do this. I don't think Sue Storm did that. I think what she said was, I don't remember her speech exactly, but, like, she's like, look at the baby. Look at the baby. We're not doing this. So maybe actually that was it. Maybe she did basically do that. But I think what she did was, like, she put a lot of, like, faux, like, momminess in it. Like, listen, I'm a mom now, as of a few months ago. And, I know stuff because I'm a mom. And if you don't listen to me, you're not listening to mom. And you're going to have hell to pay. That's what I felt. Maybe I'm wrong. But, like, I feel like she was trying to, instead of just saying, guys, we're not going to give up the baby, okay? We're not going to give up the baby because it's wrong. And get all the, the flack that she would probably get from that. She was trying to soothe people into, like, changing their mind, which I don't think really works. You can't soothe people into, seeing a moral truth. You can't, like, pander them into hopefully changing their mind, if that makes sense. So, like, and that's the larger point of this video, is that, like, there are so many opportunities to do the right thing, and most of the time it's just a matter of saying it. And I can't really say that, because really it's like you being in that heart space, you actually knowing the truth, living the truth in your own life, and then saying it. Like, Theo, I noticed that you do loving things. Is that because you like to do loving things? And then you say yes. And then you say, and then they're like, oh, why do you do loving things? And then you say, because it's loving, or whatever. Like, I know this is God's opinion on this, and that's why I do it. And a lot of people won't make sense to a lot of people, because we're grown. We don't believe that doing things God's way is the loving way. We're taught a very different set of values in the world that we're raised in than a set of values that are, God's values. So it's hard for people to accept, but the action is, well, how do I say this? It's not just saying it. I don't want to say that it's just saying it, because you have to live it, really. And to live it, you have to go through the process of releasing the dark emotions that you have inside of you that keep you from accepting the truth. And then you have to long and desire for the truth. And then you receive the truth from God. Thank you, God. And it's like now implanted in your heart. And then you live that truth. You apply it in your own life. And then, if anybody asks you, why are you doing what you're doing? You say, well, because it's a good thing to do, and it's God's moral principle that I do it like this. And yeah. There's one other point that I try to remember that I wanted to make, but it is escaping me. But that's basically the idea. That's why I'm here in Canada. I'm here in Acadia, once known as Acadia, now called Nova Scotia. And we're out here. I'm out here having a nice little vacation. Today I'm going to go on a walk with Jesus and Mary and some of the folks that have stayed for that social gathering. And I'm going to hopefully learn more things. But it's been a wild ride so far, and I would say I'm grateful for my time. So if you listened this long, kudos to you, and I hope this meant something to you, and farewell till next time.